Hi, Autumn. I thought it might be easier if I make you a video and show you exactly where I'm looking and what I'm looking at. So I just wanted to show you that your well-worded email makes it really clear for me to understand what you're asking. So I'm hoping that I can answer a few of your questions. What I'm looking at is you don't understand the first question that's being asked of you about the article, and that you are looking down information about cohorts. What's a cohort? I'm confused. So I'm going to go through the article and show you where you could and should be looking for this information. So first of all, going to Unit 2, Activity 3 information, and it should open up here. All right, so we've got Unit 2, Activity 3, and I'm scrolling down to specifically demographics. So what's important about all of this is that there's actually information here that we need. So when you actually see something like this where it's got blue font or whatever, or you could even type in cohorts into Google and see what it comes up with for a definition. If you don't understand something, it's really important to look up those terms. In this case, a cohort specifically is what we're talking about, and it's a group of people born around the same time. So, for example, I am Generation X. So I was born in 1977. And there's actually sort of a cohorting information piece that I'm actually in between two generations. So I'm at the end of Gen X, and I'm actually at the beginning of millennials. And there's actually people born in my age bracket that we now call ourselves Zennials, because we don't necessarily identify with Gen X, and we don't necessarily identify just with millennials, that we kind of have our own group. And what happens is that you're growing up at a time and you're influenced by situations around you, as well as the people who are raising you. And my parents happen to be boomers. And so all of those things come together. And as a group, because of the age that you're born at, or like the year that you're born into, that there are certain cultural things that you connect to. So I'm just going to show you a little example of what cohorts are. So I needed to look up some information, and the years can somewhat change as to what years are identified by what cohort, but I just looked this article up and found out some of the lists here. So some of the key ones that you need to know are Generation X, which is where I was sort of born into, 1965 to 1980. I was 1977, so I'm considered Gen X, but some people actually bring this back to 1976. And so I'm sort of in between Gen X and millennials. That's why I was talking about the Zennials. Baby boomers, which is my parents, 1946 to 1964, and Generation Z comes after millennials. So those are my kids that I currently have right now, are Generation Z. They're not millennials. So these are our cohorts, and we actually give them names for groups of people born within like a 15 to 20 year span. Okay, so let's go back to our information here. Now that we know what a cohort is, which is in the information right here, that we're going to go down, and what we have are two articles that are talking about specific groups. And so this is an article that's talking about when a teenager moves out of the house and different things that have happened for different age groups. So me moving out of the house was very different than my boomer parents, and the reasons for it, or how it was viewed, whatever it may be. So one thing that I think is very, very helpful in doing this is the little download button. So I actually downloaded this article. And so in seeing it, I thought it was really helpful because I can actually see it in whole and I can actually interact with it. It's a very long article, so I wouldn't copy and paste it into a Google Doc, but there's just some things that we need to look at. So the very first question here is, what is the year and survey name for which the data was gathered? And you identified that that was challenging to you. So there's no information in the title or even who the author is in this article as to what year and survey name the data was gathered. So that's not what we're talking about. And when we look here, Canadian social trends from Statistics Canada. Statistics Canada is a reliable resource here in Canada that gathers demographic information about the population in Canada, and then they report on trends that are occurring. So we have Canadian data here, and they actually have researchers that collect all this data and then do further research on it to understand the trends and what's happening in Canada. So in order to get this next piece of information, what we really need to do is we need to read the article. So what is the year and survey name for which this data was gathered? One of the strategies when I have a really long article that seems pretty dense, it's 3, 4, 5, I think 7 pages. Yeah, like it's pretty dense. So you need to scan for information. So you can read it through, but you might get a little lost. And one of the things that I need to do is scan for information. So I'm looking for something about what is the year and survey name for which the data was gathered on this particular topic. So when I scanned through here, I didn't see survey name or year. There was this, but it's talking about cohorts there. So that's not it. So I'm scanning and I go here. This article uses data from the 2001 General Social Survey to examine patterns in leaving the parental home. What's the year and survey for which the data was gathered? The data, the survey. So the answer to number 1 is just by scanning it, I found it right here. And it refers to that study a number of times. So it says it right down here as well. It's using data from that specific study. So this article is using that and then it's summarizing it into its own data. Okay, so the answer is found right there. Okay, so scanning is one thing that I would encourage you to do, just in terms of looking for those terms. And looking for the information that you're looking for. So here's the next question. And again, we're going to scan. So now that we know what a cohort is, and we know that probably based on these questions, it's going to be found after that answer. So we know we're not looking in this first column here. We're probably going to be looking after where number 1 was found. What are the 5 cohorts that were examined? And I'm just going to bring it back up here. So leaving the parental home, with the focus on Wave 1 boomers, Generation X, the differences in patterns. So what I can see through here just by scanning, we are looking at the different types of cohorts. So I can see already that Gen X and Wave 1 boomers are listed. And we're just going to scan through and see if we can find some more information here in the blue column here. And I know this is really small, especially on the screen. This is based on the General Social Survey, the 5 cohorts that are examined. There's Wave 1, Gen Y, Gen X, Wave 2. So here's the key thing that I hope I've sort of helped you find number 1 and 2. Some strategies when you have a really long, dense article is that you just need to know sort of that the questions are going to be an answer. I know that probably where I'm going to find number 3 is going to be below this, possibly in here. I just need to make sure that I've read through it. And then I'm looking for, what is it specifically that I'm looking for? So look to the question. What's the overall trend in adults leaving home compared to the past? What's the overall trend? So I'm going to see if I can find any information or headings that are going to point me in the direction about leaving home compared to the past. So maybe it's in the charts. So we're looking here, non-traditional large families encourage earlier first departure. Okay, so there's some factors there. The overall trend in adults leaving home, we can look to these charts and graphs and see what we see there. What's the overall thing? Demographic and socioeconomic factors associated with leaving home for the first time. So what trends are we seeing here that adults are leaving? This is men and women. And these are other factors. It's taking these and explaining them a little bit. Changing labor market conditions after the post-war boom. So that's past, right? So we're scrolling through and we're making sure that we understand. So there's the end of the article. So we're looking through and we're looking for information that would show why are adults leaving home now compared with the past. So we're looking at past and present trends, right? So you just got to be looking through the article, know what you're looking for. And then I just saw some of that information there. Men who have at least some post-secondary education have a 12% higher chance of leaving the parental home. So when I was going through that article, near the end, it was talking about reasons men and women are leaving home. And some of these key factors too, if we're looking at men who have at least some post-secondary education, 12% higher chance of leaving the home. So I'm scanning, looking for that information so that I can possibly even find that information in here. It might be in the blue. Don't ignore these ones at all. And you're scanning, trying to find that information. So I hope that helped a little bit just in terms of looking for the information, Googling terms that you may or may not understand. And ultimately what these articles are trying to show you is data that's showing how people, why they're leaving and launching into adulthood. So again, same thing that we're going to scan. What's the age range of Canadians that were studied? And as we go through another Statistics Canada, this is some information about Statistics Canada. And the study examines adults aged 20 to 29, the age range studied in this article, and we have the answers there. So we're looking to the question, we're scanning through looking for, rather than reading the whole article and then going back to the questions. I hope that helps.